Welcome back, everyone, to the Vibe EDU podcast. We've got the wonderful Kim Gamrose, Mitch Weathers, and TJ Berry, and myself, Joshua Stamper, as we are back. We did a mailbag last week. Kim, you were sharing off mic, and I would love for you to share on mic in regards to what people are saying about our last episode. Because obviously the mailbag is getting questions and input from the listeners, and it seems like folks are enjoying the feedback that we provided.
I think it's just because, it's inevitable that you're going to have a substitute for something. Something is going to come up. And just the feedback has been, thank you so much for talking about that, for being so open about that, for making me feel like I'm not a crazy person. And I think the different perspectives, they've definitely loved all the perspectives. So we're going to keep it coming. I mean, seriously. And if anyone has questions or situations that come up and they kind of want, an outsider's perspective, leave that for us. Leave that feedback. Leave those comments because we love to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's actually a great bridge to what we're going to be talking about today, which is just leadership as the series, but we're going to kind of stage it from point A to point B, which is first off talking about teacher leadership, and then we'll kind of go through the different leaders. But I know a lot of us want to talk about the impact that a teacher can have. And I know, and we probably all have heard this before, is, oh no, I'm just a teacher, which is a horrible thing to say. So if you're out there and you're saying that, stop it. You're wonderful. You have a lot of influence and power, and we would love to talk about that today. So where do we want to start? Who wants to kick us off in regards to teacher leadership?
Well, I can totally do it.
Let's do it.
I think back to an individual teacher who I've been working with for the past, I don't know, almost 4 years. And she came to me because she was like, these kids just don't know how to do school. And she said about herself, she's like, I need to go back to teacher school in order to help support these kids. And so we had started working together and she was introduced to the community. And then she looked at me at the end of that school year and was like, how do I make a bigger impact? Like, what can I possibly do? And I was like, well, you have already brought in other teachers across your school site, right? But you could always just write an email. And that's what she did. And she wrote an email to her director of curriculum, instruction, and coaching, professional development. And she started there and she was like, this has changed me. And how can we bring this across our entire district? And fast forward, it turned into not one, not two, but 3 incredible years of me and my team supporting not just her school site, but her entire school district. And to watch that transformation occur, empowering those educators with the things that we're missing. And then throughout that journey too, she became Teacher of the Year. One of those years got to be celebrated in front of colleagues and peers and recognized and noticed. I mean, that's what happened because she just decided to invest in herself. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, I know that this could be bigger. And she went and she wrote an email and that's what happened. So I think when we think like, I'm just a teacher, what kind of impact can I have? I mean, truly it goes in, I think it goes in order, like invest in yourself first and then take action.
The invest in yourself part, I didn't know we were going to start with that. Like I wasn't thinking about that to start, but I think that's definitely something to underscore. Like you're either being invested in or you have to invest in yourself. We wrote, I was just thinking we wrote invest in your best for school leaders who want to do more for their best people and struggle with that. Yeah. But I think a lot of listeners out there who don't have somebody who's supporting them with professional development, it's necessary. It's absolutely imperative that you figure out how to pour into yourself. And I would just say, even if it's reading books or listening to podcasts like this is a great start, but you truly can't be a leader if you're not growing. And so the other thing I wanted to say is that the definition of leadership is influence. So anybody in a school who has influence, the comment you're making that people say I'm just a teacher, the influence is what makes you a leader without a title, without anything else. And here's a quick assessment. Which way is your influence going?
Mm.
is typically not neutral. We talked about social situations not being neutral. I forget if that was on the show or off the show, but uh, leadership is not neutral either. You're either influencing the school in a positive direction or you're influencing it in a negative direction. I hate to say it.
Mm.
But that's the intentionality behind leadership, right? It's not, I would maybe go as far to say as it's, it's never neutral.
Okay.
So if it's not intentional, what impact are you having? And it makes me think, Kim, like mashing up your story with my own experience, and then TJ and Josh have talked a lot about the two school. Speaking of leaders, I know we're teacher leaders on this episode, but you guys have been school leaders. The importance of being in classrooms, like
Mhm.
as frequently as possible. And so for the school leaders or teacher leaders, even, but school leaders on the call, I think there's a gold mine, a potential there for internal professional learning to happen, because you walked into Kim's class or you walked into Josh's, whatever, and like, whoa, they're doing that thing
Mhm.
really well. And sure, we got to align it to school goals and everything, but it makes me think like the teacher wanting to get better, right? That you were working with Kim. But I remember clearly my principal saying, "Hey, would you speak to the staff about this thing?" And
Mhm.
it was organized minded. It was starting to come about. And I just had never thought about sharing it with anybody, because we don't, right? We're siloed, right? We're doing our things.
Mhm.
And then it was just the culture of our school at the time. But it was very common for a teacher to have the stage at a staff meeting every month for PD, just
Mhm.
explain what's going on and an invitation to come into the room. So it's almost like encouraging teachers to become teacher leaders, like
Right.
making that setting that up. And if you don't have that, Josh, your story of like, well, you can still go start something,
Mhm.
right? People
Oh
will
my gosh, yeah.
rally. So
I was more like the Tasmanian devil on my campus. So I came out of nowhere. Once that admin like stopped me and asked me if I ever thought about being a principal, I went like a 0 to 100. So I think I disrupted a lot of people and disrupted how they viewed me for one, and then also disrupted the campus because I was just so on fire to become a administrator someday that I took on every project. I took on every role I possibly could. I mean, I did like everything. I literally did everything for 3 years on my campus. And so I know that really ruffled a lot of feathers too.
mm,
So that's
Yeah,
probably a different
I was the
topic.
same way, Josh. I mean, in many ways, our experiences are mirror one another. But I wonder about that these days, like quote unquote these days, with like a lot more conversation around balance and things like, frankly, that I don't really believe in. Um, and so I wonder how many people are willing to do all of it. And so that's a question that I think
Mm.
people could ask themselves, because I do think you can be really awesome at your job and put a lot of effort and energy into it and still be, a great parent at home and still have I don't call that balance, because they're never in balance with one another. That sounds like we're
No.
fighting to get more time from one or the other. But even without that balance, I think, people out there finding the initiative, finding the program, finding the PD, getting involved, asking what you can do, being involved in extracurriculars, after school programs, doing all of it, man. I think, especially if you want to be a teacher leader and you want to be an admin, like, don't kill yourself, but you can do a lot for the school. Like, it is possible to do a lot and feel good about it. I never felt bad about any of that, like I was doing more than my share, or that I was robbing something from another thing that I wanted to spend time doing. It never felt that way. It sounds like you didn't either.
Oh no, goodness. I mean, there's always a place to fill. Like there's not enough resources and staff to do everything that needs to be done for a campus to be successful. And so, like for me to go in, and I know TJ, you have a book coming out on instructional leadership, and maybe we can talk about that too. But like for myself, I even took it upon myself to be like, look, I'm an art teacher. I know that the district's going to look at me differently because of my role on that campus. And so, for one, I knew that they're going to question me a lot on how I'm going to help other teachers with instruction. Well,
Mhm.
so like for myself, I went into classrooms and got data for my admin. I literally asked for that job. They gave me a role. I had the app on my phone. I got the training from the district, and I set the same goal as the admin. So they had to have 250 of these short little walkthroughs to get into classrooms and provide data to the not only for the campus but then also the district. Well, I got over 250 that year. So like I wanted to show the district that I am doing as a teacher the
Mhm.
same thing as what you're expecting as administrator. But I also knew that I was helping my administrators because if they were under 250, well, as a campus, we had met our goal because I got over 250. But then I was also strengthening myself, right? So it was like kind of twofold. I was helping myself as far as getting the experience and getting the classrooms as much as possible, but I was also helping the admin staff get the data they needed for the end of the school year. So all that being said is, and maybe this week we can kind of go into another topic, which is like the instruction. Kim,
Mhm.
you just came back from New Jersey.
Yep.
You were side by side with someone helping instruction, the person that you've been coaching for years, which just launched yet what this week as far as the podcast of you and her having a conversation of her wanting to get better, but understanding that her admin are only going to be in the classroom for so much time.
Yep.
And that's why she's hired you to come in and support her. And maybe you could talk about that too.
Yeah. I mean, TJ, I love what you said about how you can't stand the word like balance. And I wrote
Mm.
about that in Becoming the Bison. And I love the word harmony. Like in my life, I like to create some harmony, but there will never be like you said, like a balance. It sounds like you have to like work towards something. And that doesn't
Yeah.
sound like balance at all. So I love the word harmony. I want it to feel good. And for me, I knew in the classroom that my school site would feel good if everybody was on the same page, if everybody spoke the same way to kids, if we had these common systems and everything, and I would not stop. Like I love Josh when he said like Tasmanian devil. I was like, oh, that was probably me too, right? Like I would not stop, could not stop until we were all on the same page. And I remember going to my principal at the time, and I was like, can I speak? Like, will you allow me? Is that okay? Can we do that sort of a thing? Because teachers didn't really do that at our campus, right? And she had said, no. Like she flat out said, no, it's the end of the school year. Really, really busy. And in my brain, I was like, well, behaviors are totally amping up because it is the end of the school year. And your teachers are so frustrated and angry in the staff lounge. Like there has to be a better way to do it. And I mean, the stories all unfold in my book, which is some good stuff, but I definitely kept some stuff close to the vest too. I mean, she was not happy when I finally was given this opportunity, which
That
she
is a good story, though.
I know, I know. I mean, it wasn't easy, but I did not stop. I would not stop. I knew that in my brain, you guys, I wasn't like, I'm going to be a teacher leader and I'm going to be an administrator one day and I'm going to coach teachers. It was just like, we can't go on another day until things are different around here. And I think like when I'm thinking about my teacher in New Jersey too, she kind of felt the same way. Like, I'm not going to spend another day teaching in my classroom without support from my administration, without guidance, without coaching. Like, I'm going to take action and do something about it, which is why she hired me. She is definitely a leader across her campus. A quiet one, right? A quiet leader, but across her team, like when they are meeting, they're looking to her. They walk into her classroom and like, whoa, it feels different in here. Even without the kids, like you could feel it in there. It's so special because she is so committed to that growth. She like knows where she wants to go and will not stop, will not retire. I mean, she even said on that podcast episode on Unleashing the Bison, she's like, I've got 2 more years. And I said, nope, no, you don't. And she was like, well, I could retire in 2 years. I don't know if I will. I might continue. And what I said to her was like, I just see that as 2 more groups of kids that get to be with you. Like that, when you're thinking about impact and families and community, it's just 2 more groups of children. Like you've got so much more in there, so much more, which is why I intentionally recorded her and posted on Instagram the most beautiful reel, just highlighting her, just who she is at her core, because we don't ever stop to think there's more to me, right? I am just a teacher. Like I talk about that too. It's just you do feel that way until somebody from the outside maybe goes, "No, you're special. We see you. We notice the difference in you." You know? Anyways, that's what I was thinking.
I think most people that are listening though are like that, Kim, where they're probably listening right now and they're either battling with the idea of am I a teacher leader, or they're saying yes I am, but I want to be a silent one. Like I think the
Mhm.
majority of teachers aren't seeking to become administrators or become instructional coaches or district leaders. I think it happens organically when you start to come out of your comfort zone, maybe you're out of your four walls. I know for myself that happened when I became a coach, and then I started advocating for my student athletes. And
Mhm.
one was with an avid teacher and breaking down the gates to that program to say like you're doing it wrong. Like this, the people that are in your class are not representing the true folks that you're supposed to have in there. And because of me being an advocate and making headway with that conflict, I think that was an eye opener to my admin staff to say, "Oh, there's more here," and that's when that conversation occurred. Was
Mhm.
because they started to see me outside of my four walls doing other things for other people, and it wasn't because I was intentionally trying to get
Right.
their eyes on me or intentionally trying to become an administrator someday. In fact, when that conversation happened, I was just trying to get coffee, and I laughed in his face because I was like, "What are we doing here?" Like, I've only been a teacher for 3 years. Like, I'm just learning how to become a teacher, let alone an administrator someday. So I actually didn't take him seriously to begin with, but that conversation never happens unless you start to do that silent stuff behind the scenes.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think it's also I always wanted as a principal for my teachers to be a little entrepreneurial in a
Mhm.
way. So if everybody has a niche and a specialty thing that they do, then that adds value in the school, like across every single person. We're going to get a way better school. And then we really do talk about school improvement and teacher leadership as something that adds value to the school, improves the school over time. So, like, if if Mitch Weathers is the organized binder guy, now I'm going to start calling him Mitch Binder. But if he's organized binder guy and he does that sometimes at faculty meetings and gives us some strategies, and Kim is the social and emotional person, and we know that we go to her for that, and Josh has these systems to manage behavior and we go to him for that. I think we become like a stronger unit as a team. And so if you're listening now, is there a niche that the school needs? Is there one that you fill? That's teacher leadership at its core. And if that's also something you're on Instagram with or TikTok or LinkedIn, or it's something you sell, like I think all of that is cool too. Like we have this lady who writes children books, and and I would look for stuff like that on resumes. And then those would be organic questions I asked when I was hiring teachers, like, tell us about this thing you did because it's very unique. And they would say, oh, we spent a month in Colombia teaching in the summertime in these summer camps. And it's like, wow, okay, so tell me a little bit more about that. I can speak Spanish. I understand the culture. I understand many cultures, and that kind of thing adds value to the school as a whole. School improvement. So always for me, leadership in a school is school improvement, overall school improvement, and instructional improvement. Instructional leadership, improving instruction, teacher by teacher.
Mm. Mm.
I think I'm sitting here thinking of the person who's new-ish, and um, I would just encourage you to look for the teacher leaders on your campus. I'm kind of, it's an inverse of what we're talking about, but if you're brand new, seek out that support. I'm not promising you it's there, but for me, it was like I found one person in particular, but multiples now that I look back, but one that I was like, that guy knows how to teach and teach really well. And so guess who became friends? And he took on that leadership role and would we were both teaching full time, so he didn't have the capacity to come and observe me unless it was his prep. So I would just film myself, and then we would watch it. And he was gracious, and he'd make dinner, and we would sit around like 2 or 3 hours and just unpack my strategies, what I'm doing, where it went wrong. Do you see this? And so I think there's an inverse there too. Seek out the leadership, and if you don't have teacher leaders, then you have to look beyond campus, because Kim's story in point, not promising you it's there. And then for those of you that are thinking like, yeah, I want to step into more of a teacher leadership role, I think there's an intentionality there too as well. Like what specifically works for you, whether it's a role or what you do, because overwhelm and burnout is a thing too. And yeah, I just think, like, for me, I'll just tell you my story. I came into the classroom after being a director and ED of a nonprofit organization. And so I understood like one thing very clearly. I'm never going to be a principal. I've done that. I'm never going to be a school leader. I just knew in my bones, because I had a staff, I had a volunteer staff, I had a board, I had to raise monies as a nonprofit, all that like administrative stuff. But I was also pretty good at it. So what I did after my second year, I just realized like, oh, I could serve as department chair, and that works for me. That's like a level of leadership I'm really comfortable with, and I can mentor new teachers. I can be part of the hiring team. And so I stepped into a leadership role intentionally. And I think it's worth kind of figuring out what that role is for you. Kim did it like your district, that first step where you were like going around to different campuses, and that obviously resonated with you. So I think figuring, if possible, some of those things, and not just like being pulled into roles is worth some time and consideration and kind of calculation.
Mitch, I think it's worth saying, as like I was a teacher, professional development chair, department chair, assistant principal, all the way to assistant superintendent. The most influence I ever had over a group of teachers was when I was department chair. There's no doubt. I can talk about that as well, but I just want to say that the most influence I ever had was not when I had some fancy title. In fact, the higher up I went, probably the less I had, right? People get more skeptical the bigger your title is. And then, like, I think this is the responsibility of the profession, and I'm going to double down on this whenever I can, which is, if you're new and you're listening, one thing you should do is go back and get a master's degree. And so if you have influence over new teachers, help them to go back to school. And I know what they're going to say, and I know what some people are thinking right now. Oh, a new teacher. Like, I talk to new teachers all the time when I was an assistant principal, and they would say, I'd say, go back to school. Let me show you how to apply, get a master's degree. And they would say, I'm too busy. I'm a brand new teacher. How can I possibly do that? And I'd be like, all right, but let me tell you what happens. 2 or 3 years from now, when you think you've got some things under control, guess what comes next? Oh, now I'm getting married, and I have to plan for a wedding, and I have to go on a honeymoon. And then guess what happens after that? Young people start coming along. Josh has a billion of them. And so, like, the life is never prepared for you to go back to school, but the capacity of going to school while doing school is just tremendous in terms of what you learn. And I read somewhere early on that a master's degree in your first 3 years in most systems across the country is worth like $1 million. It's probably more than that now over time. Because in education, one of the ways we get paid more is by going back to school, earning credits, plus 15, plus 30, the M, all of the things that earn you more degrees in whatever system you work in. But like that leadership, learning, capacity building, going back to school, I think that's critical. To your point, Mitch, if like you look around and there aren't teacher leaders, there are people sitting in a classroom at night. And I just can't say it enough that new teachers ought to go back to school as soon as they possibly can. It's worth so much to the profession and to you and to your pocketbook.
I was just laughing, thinking, oh my God, when I went back to school to get when I started my teaching credential, I was already married, right? And so I was already Mrs. Gamma Rose. Like, I didn't have my maiden name anymore. Like, that was gone. When I went back to school to my master's, I already had like a 3-year-old. And he was like jumping on top of me as I'm like trying to type my essays and all the stuff, like there never is the perfect time. It was craziness, but you just do it. You do it and you're proud of yourself when it's done. What I was thinking was, when I'm looking for teachers to bring into my community, I like, as you were talking, I was thinking, I think every single teacher that's in my community is a teacher leader. Every single one of them. Like they are like, you guys have met a lot of them. You've heard their voices on Voxer when I forward you their messages too. Like they're filled with teacher leaders for sure. And whether they're like taking action on that or just quietly doing it behind the scenes, it is happening. People are noticing them 1000%. When I was in Jersey, I ran into a student teacher, and Jen, who was my teacher that I was like coaching, she's like, come here, you've got to meet this teacher. She's like, you'll love her. And so she literally just opened her mouth. She's like, hi, my name is whatever. And I was like, I looked at Jen, I was like, oh, she's in. She's in. Like I could already tell, like you just needed to say hi. And I was like, oh, she's a good one. Bring her in. Right. Like, you just can tell. And I feel like then you start teaching, like this teacher is going to start teaching and she's going to second guess herself like they always do. The good ones always are like, I'm not doing enough. I need to be better. I need to do this faster. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. And I was thinking, all you really need to do is in a meeting or in a PLC or whatever it is, just talk about what's going on and talk about the good things that you're doing. And everybody around you is going to go, wow, tell me more. Right? Even as a new teacher, like things are going well. There are things that are going well. And I think I would just encourage, especially like my elementary school teachers that are just feeling it. I mean, right now they're feeling it, right? But to be able to take the pressure off, yourself. You don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your conversation is not perfect, but I want you to have conversations around the good things, right? The things that felt sticky that aren't as sticky anymore, right? The growth in the students, and to have conversations instead of feeling like you need to make a presentation about that. I would like more teachers to be doing those types of things. That's, I think, is going to encourage more teacher leaders across campuses.
Yeah. And to go back to what Mitch and TJ were talking about too, about like if there's a lack of leadership on your campus, and I would say if that's occurring, that's actually because your admin team's not cultivating that. And I think like we put some stuff in, I know this is talking more like higher admin, but like we would put things in place so that we didn't have repeat leaders. Like you could only be in a leadership position for 3 years before we opened that up
Mhm.
to a new leader. And we did that intentional because what we were finding was that people were complacent. They were just doing what they always did, and we weren't seeing any like innovation and creativity in those spots when we needed it. And but also what we found was like, oh, well, that person's been doing it for 8 years, so I'm not going to try and become that leader because they've had that for so long. It's just understood as a campus that they're going to continue in that spot. And for us, we wanted to continuously get people to try new things. And even if you tried it for a year, you didn't enjoy it and you didn't want to do it moving forward, that's fine. At least you had leadership experience. And so for us, we continuously told our staff, like, yes, you are a teacher, but you're a teacher leader, and we want everyone to get as much experience in these different roles as possible. So if you're interested, have that conversation. Or as an admin team, that was something that we charged ourselves with, which is get into classrooms and find those young leaders to be like, hey, I think you should try and apply for this. I think you should be in this role in the future, and trying to let them know that we see things inside of them that again they probably don't see inside themselves. And so I think as a leadership team, that's something that we need to continuously do, which is cultivate leaders at a young age and having a rotation. So it's not just the same old folks doing it every single year.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about building a culture of leadership in the school. And I think I love it. And one thing we did as a principal was when I was a
Did we just
principal,
lose him?
we had a survey at the end of every school year. And that survey asked teachers what they would be willing to lead in the future, something that they were interested in leading. So it was interesting. It was interesting to find out that there were people who saw themselves as a department chair and, a future department chair, but they weren't necessarily like somebody who you would pick for that. yet. And so they were able to express leadership things to them, to the staff, to themselves, and to the admin. And it was a specific question that we asked about leadership. The last thing I'll say too about the student part of it was I got to meet one of the writers of the PSEL standards, the professional standards for school leadership. Got to meet one of the writers, and one of the things he said was you should be able to go into any school in the country and pick a kid at random and ask the kid what they're involved in extracurricularly that's non-academic. So the kid says, I'm involved in the after school chess club. And the next question you should say is, what leadership opportunities are available in the after school chess club? And the kid should be able to say, eighth graders get to be the captain of the team or something like that, right? I'm making this up, but that's what his vision was for leadership at every level in a school. And so it wasn't that they were all going to be the leader or the captain of the chess team, but they knew that there was a way to do that if they wanted to. And he said 100% of kids, but that also means that 100% of kids are participating in extracurricular activities. And guess what that means? That means 100% of the teachers have to be involved to provide that kind of thing, whether it's during the day or after school. That's teacher leadership when you're doing that. That's an impact. That's a school improvement strategy. So I really like that part of what you did with the rotation, Josh, because you said 8 years, but I bet you there's people who've been doing it for 25 or 30.
I was just thinking about my son, and he takes like a leadership class. He's in like a school leadership class, right? And that is a course that he takes. And we had this major conversation around it. Just I've seen so much growth in him, not just in school, but like the way he speaks to even like when he's ordering something at a restaurant, even like he's looking him in the eye and he's answering the questions, or he opened a door for somebody else and let them go in first. Like all those things are happening, and I'm noticing all of that stuff. But I had asked him, I was like, why'd you even take this class to begin with? Like, you could have taken art or something, right? Like, why did you do that? And he's like, because I know that I need to take that class so that I can get into this program. It's like their PALS program. And I want to do that next year when I'm in 8th grade. And I was like, okay, that's really interesting that you see the path, you see where you want to go. And I think that's something that we need to teach kids. We can't expect that all kids understand that type of stuff too, right? So like, yes, we have all those extracurriculars and everything, but they know that this is the path that you need to take. And the teachers also know, right, that they talk to the kids about those things. I think that needs to be ingrained in the culture too.
Well, it's worth noting in light of what you're saying, Kim, and TJ, even what you're saying a little bit, but every teacher is a leader because there's kids in the room. It's inherent to the profession. So if we were spending a lot of time about teacher influence on other teachers, which is great. But there's young people in the room. You're the leader. You're the model. So getting clear about that is it's intimidating. The responsibility of what we step into. It's fun, but I think being mindful of leadership with young people too is important.
I was thinking of like the families too. Like I love getting in classrooms and teaching all the things all day long. Like although I'm sweating and drained, it is the best. But the community piece too, like those parents, they see you not just as a teacher, but like you said, as the leader. You're leading this herd of kids, right? Every single day. And creating those relationships, intentional relationships with families too, so that they know like you're all leading together, right? All of us across our campus, we include the parents in that too. I think that's really, really important because you can feel the difference. I mean, there's been schools where I walk into the halls and like, it feels really heavy in here, right? And then you walk outside at the end of the school day, doesn't feel really good either. But then there's other schools where you're like, oh my gosh, there's magic. I can feel the magic. What's happening? I can like feel it radiating, right? Even with closed doors, I can feel it. And at the end of the school day to have, I mean, I personally had families running up to me, didn't even want to shake my hand, went in for the hug multiple times, right? Because they feel a sense of community and connection. I think because when teachers know like they've got a big job to do and they are leading not just their colleagues in the work and one another in the work, but they're leading the kids and the families are part of it. That's such a special thing. So special.
Yeah, something that I've learned several times, it's come up either a podcast or a book, that the school doesn't have to be a microcosm of the community.
Mm.
Like everybody said, like I've even heard people say the school is a microcosm of the community. That's not true.
Mm.
The school community can be in and of itself positive, thriving, flourishing, even if the community isn't.
Mm.
And it should be the hub maybe of the community, along with a few other really important entities. But it certainly doesn't have to be a microcosm because of people, teachers, principals who are leading within those walls, modeling differences that kids maybe don't see in the community, but they get from their teacher. So that does, yes, make every single teacher a leader, a community leader, a school leader. And I think there's some hierarchy there, frankly. Like there's some people who rise to a title, and there's some other people who go into admin, and there's some other people who, run a program after school for teachers or students. So there's levels to the leadership, and I really can't wait because next episode we're going to talk about assistant principals, that level in particular. And I know for me, what got me here won't get me there. And so a lot of times when we jump to that next level, whether it's department chair or assistant principal, the things that made us great in the past are not the things that are going to make us great in the future. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it also is another note about reading books, listening to podcasts, going back to school. Can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm. You sound like my book, Becoming the Bison. It's like you read it or something.
Well, I have it right here on my screen, so I mean that.
He's just quoting it at this point, Kim.
For the record, listeners, I'm the only one with an endorsement of the 3 gentlemen you're listening to right now. So
it's
just
coming.
saying.
Don't get him.
It's because I'm thoughtful about it. I don't just, write it. So
Just shoot from the hip.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
intentional, and I noticed.
Yeah,
I was
right.
taking every minute all the way up until the due date to make sure it was great.
Yeah, of course you were.
Guys.
Of course
I
you
think
were.
we have a great divide on this podcast. I think me, TJ versus Kim and Mitch. That's what's come down to.
Vibes like this.
Teachers versus
Crisscross.
admin.
Different mindsets. Well, that's probably a good segue to what we're going to be talking about next week. TJ kind of, shared a little bit about that, but we're going to go through each of the positions. Obviously, teacher leader this time, assistant principal, then principal, and then district leaders. So just for those who are listening, as the 4-part series, we're going to try and hit each one of those. That's what I was referring to earlier as point A to point B, because obviously, like TJ was talking about, like there is different roles and things that we have to do to prove ourselves to get to that different role. And then, of course, that impact, obviously, we're impacting differently too with each of those roles. So super excited about going through each of those leadership things with the 3 of you. I was going to say 4, but I am the 4th. So with that, if you have questions in regards to teacher leadership, you have comments, if you want something addressed in the future for the mailbag, definitely hit us up in the comments, both on Spotify and in YouTube. We love seeing those comments. We'll definitely give you a shout out if you want to put your name or have your name read on the podcast. We'd love to do that. And of course, make sure that you're hitting the websites in the show notes for all of us. We provide a lot of different resources, both free and paid for you. And yeah, if there's anything else that you need support with, of course, reach out. We'd love to do that. And then any other announcements? Obviously, Kim, you've got a book coming out. TJ, you've got a book released to be purchased for pre-order. Mitch, is your book ready for pre-order?
At organizedbinder.com it is, but not on Amazon yet.
Okay.
It doesn't.
All
The
right.
pub date's March So we got some time.
Well, I'm the lone man out, so I got to get cracking and write a book, I guess.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to.
Said it.
All right.
Speaking of
Everyone
leadership.
yeah, right. All right. If you need anything, of course, reach out. But we hope you have a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing you again here soon.